You see this, Boris? This is my unimpressed face. Now granted, it looks a lot like my normal face. But it's because I've been unimpressed with you, Boris, for a very long time. At some point this week, Boris is going to basically put the whole of the UK back into a fucking lockdown, total lockdown. For what? Apparently he's bending to public pressure. You lefty fucking weirdos, you socialist knobheads that have been crying out for this, you Karens, you spineless little twats that have been calling out for this. What the hell is wrong with you? Even the WHO is turning around and saying that lockdowns aren't the answer. Yet you cried out for it, called out for it. What is wrong with you? You lot aren't going to be happy until the country is dead, economically. There's something mentally wrong with you lot. This flu barely kills 0.026% of people under the age of 80. The evidence for that is clear. The ONS figures say it themselves, or they did do until they started blending the flu and the COVID numbers together. Have you noticed how flu has disappeared this year? Do none of you pay any attention to what's going on? Fucking morons. All of you. Thankfully, you're a dwindling minority. All this lockdown is going to do is wake far more people up, get far more people frustrated with the government, and then all hell's going to break loose. And it's all thanks to you. It's on your heads. All the suicides, all the deaths that are attributed to the lockdown period, their deaths are on your hands. Fucking idiots. But that's the one sort of silver lining, I think. The amount of people that are going to realise, wait a minute, this is all bollocks. Especially if Trump gets in, mark my words, it's not going to be the same in the US. And as soon as we find out about that, ooh. And all you morons that have called for this, it's going to be hell to pay. Morons. Fucking morons. Anyway, the last video got pulled down for too much truth in one concentrated dose, I think. So, what follows is Mike Yeadon. He's the ex-VP of Pfizer, you know, pharmaceutical company. Also, probably the one person qualified enough to tell Patrick Vallance that he's a dick and he's fucking lying through his teeth. So here you go. Maybe you'll listen to him. Dicks. Anyway, rest of you, like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. See you later.
Scientific, legal people, you must be able to see now and say that it's our professional view that SAGE is providing aberrant, seriously, lethally wrong advice. The people of this country and the scientists and professional bodies should demand their immediate ejection. Listeners, the reason the pandemic is not over is because SAGE says it's not. That's it. I've said such awful things about several named individuals. Hi Pat, he knows what I've said. Why hasn't he sued me? When you say in public something that I know you know is not true and you use it for a purpose, then I think the phrase lie is correct. I've accused him of lying. So why hasn't he sued me or put an injunction on me? He would lose. I would be able to show, I think, to any reasonable judge that what I have said is supported by our history and the science that we share, the medium of science. We can both read this stuff. What he said is not true. So he's either lying or he's incompetent. There is no innocent explanation for it, and yet he's not sued me, and I'm doing it again today. Come at me. I don't care at all.
Yeah.
So as I say, the reason it's not over is because SAGE says it's not.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past. And among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader. And he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy. Trouble. And that is the issue of this campaign that makes all the other problems I've discussed academic, unless we realize we're in a war that must be won. Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. And they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right, we cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb, by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Alexander Hamilton said, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.